So if you've never built a PC, you can be a little bit intimidated, but it's honestly like Legos, but with wires. So in this video, I want to be showing you my approach to building a gaming PC. Yo, what's the deal guys? How are we doing today? My name is Joshua Lopez and I'm here to help you grow and elevate your live stream and gaming experience. So make sure to subscribe and stay tuned because again, we're going to be learning how to build a PC in this video. But if you have any questions about this one or some previous videos, make sure to follow me on Twitch because I do stream pretty often. So hit me up there. Enough chit chat. Let's go ahead and get started with this build. So a couple things that you're going to need before you can even build the PC are your tools. So what I like to use is I have some nice scissors, some zip ties because you're going to be needing it for the cable management. I have a magnetic bowl just to keep all the screws together so I don't lose any. And I have a nice iFixit toolkit. You only need a flathead and a Phillips screwdriver, but sometimes depending on what your case is, you might need a couple extra tools. Most importantly is going to be the anti-static mat. This is actually connected to some metal down on the table itself, so that's how it relieves its static. Another great thing to have is actually having yourself a static bracelet yourself. You can put this on your wrist. I choose to put this on my ankle just because I don't like it getting in the way. So I'm gonna put this on my ankle and I'm gonna attach it to the same point that I have this mat. So to build a PC, of course, you have to have the right components. I have a couple videos that show price range builds. I have an $800 and a $1,200 PC build as well. In the future, we're going to be doing new PC builds with the new 3000 series card. So if you're not subscribed already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the valuable content coming up ahead. For this PC build, I'm not going to be going over the components. I'm just going to be going over the component types to make sure that you're not missing any parts for your PC. So depending if you're going to be going Intel or AMD, you need to make sure to pick the right components. PC Part Picker has some pretty good resources in order to make sure that you have the right components and if they're compatible. So use that as a resource as well. So the first component is going to be your motherboard. You need this. This is what is going to connect to everything. You're going to put all your memory to it. You're going to put your graphics card and your CPU. So this will be the heart of your build. And the next thing is going to be the graphics card. This is pretty much what you'll be gaming off of. This is what's going to give you the frames and everything you need in order to render videos as well. I guess you can say this is the muscle of the PC. And the next important component for your PC build is going to be the CPU. And this will be the brains of your computer. Yes, it looks like a big box, but this is your processor. This is going to be the little chip that's going to be right there. And we'll take a closer look. And the memory and the storage. You're going to have your RAM as well as your storage. In this PC build, I'm not going to be using a hard drive or an SSD. I'm going to be using an NVMe, but I will still show you how to connect an SSD or a hard drive if you choose to use one of those. And to power everything, you will need your power supply. You'll want to make sure to see how much wattage your graphics card and CPU use in order to power your whole system. Sometimes it's okay to go over, but it's never okay to go under. You don't want to break anything. And in order to hold everything else, of course, you're going to need a case. So in this case, no pun intended, I'm going to be using NZXT H510. Great case, and it's easy, and it's cheap. And I just dropped everything. So now that we talked about all the components you need, let's get started with build. I like to go with the motherboard first. So let's take out your motherboard, and what we're going to do is we're going to place it right on top of the box to make sure that there's no static electricity to do any type of damage. Also, something else to note is that the manual in here is going to be a great resource. I've built quite a bit amount of PCs, but I still refer to the motherboard manual. You never want to make any type of mistake. So guys, it's okay. I know guys don't like to look at maps, but in this case, it's an investment. You don't want to break anything. You don't want to get anything wrong. So pull out that manual and just put this to the side. This is going to be for your hard drives and your SSDs. This is what sends the information to your motherboard. So if you're using a hard drive or SSD, you can put this to the side. Now that we got your motherboard out, we're going to be putting our CPU, our RAM, and in this case, the NVMe drive. So if you have that NVMe, you'll want to get that. So the first thing I like to do is put the NVMe drive in there because this is not going to get in the way of anything. So I'm going to unscrew the heatsink that's right here. I'm going to screw in the bowl I'm gonna take this off, and underneath there's going to be this little plastic. What you're gonna do is just take that off, put it to the side. In this case, there is a screw to hold down your NVMe. Some motherboards don't have it, but just go ahead and unscrew that. Screw over here. And there's gonna be a notch right here, so you're not gonna get the NVMe in the wrong spot. Put that down. Get the screw. Make sure not to lose it. Put that in right there. And just go back and get the heatsink. Put it in the proper spot. And then there you go. So now we're going to take the CPU, and you want to be very careful when handling this, because underneath is going to be all the pins. If you bend one, you might not be able to salvage it. So be very careful and only touch it on the edges. Now, whenever you do get the CPU, you're going to see that there is a nice triangle at the very bottom of it. And also there's going to be a triangle at the very bottom of your motherboard. That's going to be the orientation of which you place the CPU. In order to place it, pick up this little lever, and you're going to drop the CPU in. There should be no force at all when it comes to this. Just like that, it drops in. Then pull the lever down, make sure it goes underneath, and you've put your CPU in. Now in this case, the fan that we're using is not going to attach to the brackets on the motherboard. I'm going to unscrew those, and then I am going to put the fan on where the bracket used to be. Now, before placing the actual fan, one thing to notice is when you get any type of fan with the CPU, most likely there's going to be thermal paste on it, so you'll be fine. But if you don't see any thermal paste, make sure to apply your thermal paste now. It's only going to be a pea size, but this has thermal paste already, so we're just going to install the fan to the motherboard. So there's going to be 4 screws. I like to go in an X. I'll go from one side to the other side and vice versa, just so that the tension on the motherboard isn't strained at all. So now that they're in on all 4 corners, make sure that they're just tight. So now you got this cable right here. This is going to be for the CPU fan, of course. So look on your motherboard to see where it is, and it's going to say CPU fan. In this case, it's going to be right here. I'm going to place this right here. I'm going to put the cable just like that out of the way. So now that you got that, we're going to move on over to the RAM, and it's very important that you do this correctly. We're going to go and get the 2nd and the 4th slot. Depending on your motherboard, sometimes the top and the bottom open, sometimes only the top. In this case, both of them open, so you want to make sure to hit both of that. There's also notches in the RAM itself that will match according to the motherboard. So take a look at that and make sure to get it in the slot. It can be a little difficult, but it should pop right in. So here is the slot, and then take a look at the slot right here on the motherboard, and then drop. I like to go from the bottom and then go to the top. It should just click, just like that. And then get the 2nd one and put this in the 4th slot. And once you get the 1st one in, it should be easy because you can see the logo on how it looks and just match it that way. So again, I'm gonna go from the bottom to the top and click just like that. So there you have it. You've just pretty much put everything onto the motherboard. So next thing, let's prep the case so that we can put the motherboard inside of it. So the next thing is going to be case prep, and as you can see, I've already removed the front panel and the rear panel. So that just helps me work a little bit easier, but a couple of things that you're going to need to do is, as you can see right here, you have all of this right here. This is going to be the front I/O. So pretty much all the buttons on here and USB and your audio, this is what these cables are. Also, you can see right here, this is for storage, extra screws, zip ties, and such. So you can put this to the side for now until we need it. But yeah, just make sure everything is out of the case so that we can put the motherboard in. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just going to undo all this. We'll get to this in a minute. Put this to the side, then place this flat like this. So when you look inside the case, there's going to be areas for the motherboard to sit, as well as put screws. If yours does not have that, make sure to get the little box that is in the case and put it in the necessary spot. Also, in the middle right here, there's not going to be anywhere to put a screw. That's strictly going to hold the motherboard. So you want to make sure to get the middle of the motherboard right at this spot right here. Also, another thing before even putting your motherboard is the IO shield, the back of the motherboard. In this case, we grab this, it already has it, so we don't have to put that. But if your motherboard doesn't come with it already installed, you want to make sure to clip that in right here to the side and then put your motherboard on. So we're going to put this in here nice and slow because you don't want to break anything. I'm going to find that little hole and it's going to go right in just like that. Not hard. If you're using force, something is wrong. You want to make sure to get it nice and right. So now that the motherboard is in, we need to get all the screws in. In this case, there's 7 screws. So I'm going to go ahead and get the box. This is going to have all the screws inside. So we will take these 632s and put these where they need to be. Also, this is why this toolkit comes in handy pretty well, because it has the extension. So if you want a toolkit like this, I will have a link in the description down below so that you can purchase it. So now that the motherboard is in, let's go ahead and connect the case fans and the front IO panel. So I like to go with the smallest cables first. So that's going to lead us to the fans. And then we're going to go to the front IO panel cables that are already on here. Just go ahead and look at your motherboard manual to see where they got the fan headers for this. In this case, the fan headers are going to be at the system fans right in this corner. And the second one's going to be right here. So just look at your motherboard manual and see where those headers are. So there's going to be a lot of moving when it comes to this, because you want to make sure, one, you get your cable management right, and whatever's easier for you to move in or work in. So I like to move it. So the first fan that's right here, I'm going to put that as the system fan 1. Again, that's going to be in the front corner. And then I'm going to put the system fan 2 right here. All right, so those are in, but as you can see that the cables are kind of all over the place. So what we're going to do is we're going to put them at the top of the case and pull them to the back, just so that they're out of the front case view. So now that they're in the back, we're going to just put them to the side because we're going to work on cable management a little bit later. But for convenience, this is when you can get the zip ties and just kind of place them in an area that's going to be out of your way. All right, so now that that is taken care of, we're going to take care of the front IO. Let's put these where they need to be. The first cable is going to be HD audio, and it says HD audio, and on here it also says audio. Refer to your motherboard manual just to make sure where it goes. In this case, it's going to go right here. And the next set of cables is going to be the front panel. So sometimes some cases are going to have about 8 different little small cables. In this case, it's all one group. For the most part, it's going to be the power switch, as well as the LED light. And again, refer to your motherboard manual on this one. In this case, it's grouped together, so we don't have to have all the small pins. All we have to do is take this, and the front panel is going to be right here. So I'll plug that in right there. So the last 2 cables are going to be the USB-C and the USB 3.0. The blue cable is going to be the USB 3. So you can just find where it has USB 3, and it's usually right next to the front panel. So we'll just put this in here, and there's a little notch so you can't get it wrong. Then that's it. And the last cable is going to be USB-C. Now, some motherboards don't have this. In this case, I don't. So we're just going to take this out and put it on the side. Now, a word of advice, know where they go, because sometimes you're going to unplug them just to get a better routing when you start putting all the power cables together. Just work at your own pace and try not to get stressed out, because it's gonna get a whole lot messier now. So just to recap, we put the CPU on the motherboard, we put the RAM on the motherboard, and we put the NVMe on the motherboard. We also put the motherboard onto the case, and we also put the front panel connectors onto the motherboard. So if you got a little bit confused, I got timestamps in the video, so just work your way back. If you have any questions as well, make sure to hit me up on Twitch or to go to the comments because I like to answer all the questions you have. I want to make sure that you guys are doing everything correctly. And also, if I missed something, just make sure, hey, let me know so I can correct. So as I said, it's going to get messier, and that's where the power supply comes in. So go ahead and grab your power supply. I would recommend getting a modular power supply because you're able to use only the cables you use. If you get a regular power supply, it's going to have pretty much everything connected, and then it's going to be like a tangled mess. So keep that in mind whenever you're building your PCs. They do cost a little bit more, but trust me, they're a whole lot easier. Semi-modular power supplies are also good. Semi meaning they have two cables connected, which is usually your CPU power and your power to your graphics card, and everything else can be used if necessary. So we'll get the power supply, open this sucker up. So like I said, this is going to be a modular power supply. So you're going to have two cables already. This is going to be for your motherboard. Then this is going to be for your CPU power. I think I said graphics card power, but I digress. It's going to be motherboard power. You also get all these other cables. This cable right here, as you can see, this is going to be a cable for your storage. So like a hard drive or an SSD. You also get an extra one just in case if you want to have like 10 terabytes of 1 terabyte drive, which isn't ideal to do, but hey, it's your computer. Then you also have an additional cable right here. This is going to be the VGA. This is for your graphics card. It's very important. So we're going to be using this one. And then you also get some Molex cables. Kind of outdated. Don't know why they do this, but I do see a lot of RGB being used with this. So in my case, I'm not going to use this. The main things I'm using is the CPU power, the VGA power, and the motherboard. And again, if you're running any SSD or hard drive, you're going to want to use this cable right here. So one thing that's a little bit controversial is directions of the fan. In my case, I would never want hot air to hit the fan, because if the fan were to blow up or anything, then that's your whole computer. So what I like to do is I like to have the fan blow from the bottom, which means the air is going to blow from here, and then it's going to go out from the back side. So you're not having to worry about any extra hot air from your CPU or graphics card mess anything up with your power supply. We'll put this in. I'm gonna move the case back. This you can see. It's really easy. Might be hard to see because it's all black, but you know what I mean. Put the sucker in. I'm gonna leave it loose for now, just in case I need to move anything. So I have it in. First is going to be the motherboard. So I'll put this right through here. Let me grab it. And then it's going to have a little extra connector right here. Make sure that this second adapter right here is even with the rest of the pins and not up or down. So I'm gonna make sure that's there. There's also a clip so you can't get it wrong. There's a little wedge on the motherboard itself, so make sure that the direction is appropriate. In this case, the clip is going to be, if you see my hand, on the outside. I'm gonna make sure that this attaches to that. You're gonna have to use some force, but don't use too much because you don't want to snap the motherboard. What I like to do is, if I can, I'll put my fingers behind the motherboard just so I can put pressure on my fingers rather than the motherboard, so the stress isn't bending the motherboard. It is in there. I'm gonna make sure I can hear the clip, and it's in there. And we'll worry about the cable, but I like to keep this kind of at the same height. All right, so next is going to be the CPU power. CPU power is going to be right at the very top. You can't see it, but depending on the motherboard as well, you might have one 8-pin or two 8-pins. In this case, it's a B450, so it has only one 8-pin. So we're only going to be using one 8-pin cable. I like to route this from the top this way and then going in like that. So I'll take this cable, go from the back top of the case. I'm going to drop this cable right here, as you can see. I'll put the top right here where my finger is. There's a pin, it's black, you can't see it, but you'll see it on your motherboard. Place it right there. So also note that if you need to move any of the case fans out of the way, do it. You'll save yourself some time. I actually removed the top fan just so that I can get the CPU power in the right spot without breaking my fingers. So it's okay. Remove some fans, but just make sure the orientation that they were in so you don't mess anything up. So the next piece to do is the graphics card. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the VGA cable and get this ready. So if a cable is pretty much scrunched up like this, I like to flatten it out just a little bit because it's easier for the cable management once we get there. What you want to do is you want to get the 8-pin and put this side into the power supply. On this side, you're going to have two 8-pin connectors, and you'll put this on the graphics card side. So I'll run this through the case just like so. I'll leave this hanging just a little bit, give me some slack. You turn this around, and this is where not having the power supply plugged in really comes into play. and then we can take the cable and we can put it into the power supply. Again, this is the VGA cable. On the back of the power supply, it's going to say VGA. So now we got that plugged in, we can go ahead and put this back in here. Also note, sometimes it says PCIe, so look at the cable and look at the back of the power supply, but PCIe will also be your graphics card. We got this in and we're almost ready to game. Now, for you guys that are running a hard drive or an SSD, this is going to be simple. I don't got a hard drive on hand, but it's going to be 2 cables. It's going to be this cable that came out of your motherboard. So we'll go ahead and open this so you can take a look at that. There's going to be a 90, there's going to be a flat. What you're going to want to do is take the flat side. This is going to be on your motherboard. So we'll go ahead and turn this around. So this will be actually right here. Some have different speeds. Again, depending on your motherboard, look at the manual. So you're going to plug this in right here. So for the sake of this video, I'll actually just plug one in just right here, like so. And it's going to clip. So we'll run this to the back. So remember, you got this hanging in the back. This is what's going to transfer all the data so that you can read it, so you can see it. The next cable is going to be the power cable, because you got to power the hard drives. This is where this cable comes into play. So we'll plug this one into the back of the power supply and this one into the back of the hard drive. Also, this is a SATA power, so it's going to go into the SATA insert of the power supply. And then I'll just put this right back in here. So now we got both these cables, and on the back of your hard drive and the back of your SSD, it inserts pretty easily. So insert accordingly. I'll put a picture so you can see it's not that hard. Just make sure not to bend, because the edges on the hard drives and SSDs can be a little bit brittle. Plug those in, you're good. The back of the case has a spot right here where you can put SSDs, and there's a cage underneath here where you can put hard drives. Depending on how you want it set up, you got both those placements right there. I think we're almost done. So let's go ahead and get that graphics card. One thing to note is if you have a 2-slot or a 3-slot card, this is a 2-slot, as you can tell from the notches right here. There's 1, 2. It's going to go into the top part right here. There's a little lever. Let's just go ahead and push that back so we can insert it. And then with your finger, just go all the way down to see where it is. And this slot right here is what I'm going to take out. I'm also going to take out the bottom one because it's a 2-slot card. This case has it right here. Just unscrew this, and then those 2 slots I'll also take out on the back. Now I'll take out both of those. Make sure not to drop them so you don't damage anything. Put them to the side. So now we got the 2 open slots so that we can put the graphics card in. So what I like to do is also, don't forget, there's going to probably be a black cover, so make sure to remove that. How I insert these graphics card is I'm going to insert it from this edge right here so I don't damage this right here. So I'll go right there first, and then it's just gonna pop right in. You heard that audible noise, you know it's in, and it's not going anywhere. So we're gonna go ahead and get the screws that we removed from the back of the case and put them right back where they were. So now graphics card is in. Remember I was talking to you about these cables? You got 2 8-pins. In this case, this graphics card only has 1 8-pin. But if you have a bigger graphics card, it's gonna have 2 8-pin connectors. Or if you even go to the 3000 series, it's gonna be 3 8-pins. But for this graphics card, it's only 1. So I'm going to zip tie the bottom of this and then going to insert the top portion into the graphics card. So then just take this cable, make sure it's aligned correctly, and insert right here until it clips. And then there you have it. So you've pretty much done with the whole PC build. But before you finish or close anything, make sure that this power supply is, of course, fastened. So like I said, we are pretty much done. We've fastened everything. If you have any questions at this point, drop them down below. I'll feel free to answer all of them. But we got one more step to do. Now, I'm not going to show you exactly how to do it because there's so many different ways to do it because of different cases. What you want to do when you're doing your cable management in the back is a couple things. You want to make sure that all of the cables in the back are not protruding. You don't want them to get cleaned up with the back panel whenever you put it on, and you don't want any cables to be crimped or anything like that. You also want to run the bigger cables first and then smaller cables last because it's a little bit easier. Think of it like this. You have a jar, you put big rocks in it and then you put sand in between and you're able to fill more. But if you fill a glass up with sand and then you have big rocks, there's nowhere for them to go because there's no empty space. So keep that analogy whenever you are doing your cable management. And like the first one, run any cable through crevices or edges. And also, if you need to unplug something to reroute it, you can do that. Don't feel like, oh, I've attached this and then all of a sudden I have to leave it there just because. No guys, honestly, I spend more time doing cable management than I do actually building the PC. I like very clean cable management, and if I can squeeze a little bit of airflow in the back of the case, so be it. Cleaner cables will always be better. And yes, I know I might have just been harping on having clean cable management, but guys, it's okay if it looks messy. As long as nothing is protruding, nothing is being clipped by the back panel, or nothing is being stressed at all. You want to make sure that the cables are healthy. So do it how you please. The more computers you build, the easier it will become. So right now I'm going to start on this cable management, but we're done. So there you have it guys, I showed you the inside and the outside of the case as far as how I did cable management. So just try and follow that, follow the advice I gave you, and get to it. The next thing for you to do is to install Windows, and that's easy. All you have to do is get a Windows key on a USB, put it into the USB slot, boot up your computer, and then follow the prompt that Windows has. I will tell you, I am going to be making a video on how to have a discounted key, also how to install it, so you don't want to miss that. Make sure you're subscribed. Only 10% of you guys who watch the videos are subscribed. That means a whole nother 90 like the content and aren't subscribed. So subscribe right now guys. You know you're going to do it eventually. So if you have any additional questions, hit me up in the comments, hit me up on Twitch or Instagram, and in the meantime guys, you guys game up. All right, we're done. That's a wrap.